The calls keep coming. Every day, it feels like the same calls come, and there's nothing that can be done to prevent them. It never feels like we're making a difference. It sets the stage for the play called Burnout, and what we see is our unwitting role as best supporting actor. So what's burnout's definition? Burnout is defined by feelings of exhaustion, cynicism, and inefficacy. What else could you feel if you know that as soon as you hang up the phone, it will just ring again with the next customer? How can you avoid burnout when every day is an onslaught of the same thing? Well, that's about learned control. See, Martin Seligman and Steve Mayer stumbled across what seemed to be learned helplessness. The dogs they were working with wouldn't even take minimal effort to avoid receiving a mild shock. They just stood there and took it. Years later, Mayer and his colleagues would find that he and Seligman were slightly wrong all those years ago. Certainly, there was some learning, or lack of learning, going on. But they were wrong about what was being learned. Instead of learning to be helpless, the dogs learned a degree of control when they were given away out of the pain. It wasn't helplessness that was learned. That's the assumed default state. Control was learned, and as it turns out, that's essential to our well-being. In fact, that's hope. There are two primary roads to hope. The first is that the world is fundamentally good and helpful, and some external, and some might say slightly magical, force will transform our current challenges and struggles into something different. An external force will make our world better. The second road to hope runs through our belief in our personal agency. That is, the degree to which we can control or influence our situation. Hope and the belief of control can help us avoid cynicism. After all, cynicism is the unconscious choice of last resort once we believe we have no control or influence over a situation. However, cynicism is only one of the components of burnout. What about exhaustion and inefficacy? It turns out they're both driven by a lack of hope as well. So what about exhaustion and efficacy? You see, there's a level of frustration that happens when you expect that you're working as hard as you can and it's not enough. You push a little harder for the time, thinking that you can do just a little more, you'll make a permanent change. However, the calls keep coming. Nothing you do seems to stop the relentless waves of support calls asking what seems to be the same information. Like waves lapping up on the ocean shore, there seems to be no stopping them. How might you feel if you've been in an all-out sprint for longer than you thought was possible? In a word, exhausted. When you feel like you've got to give more than you have to get ahead, the inevitable result is a feeling of exhaustion. And that means it's time to think differently. Objectively, you may not be able to change your circumstances. However, what you can do is view the situation differently, and here are 3 suggestions. 1, understand you're making a difference. There's an old story of 2 boys walking down the beach. The first boy is throwing starfish back into the water, and the second tells him it's not making a difference. There are just too many of them washed up. The first boy throws another and says, "It did to that one." You can't change everything, but you can make a difference to those you help. 2, let the waves continue. The fact that there will be calls tomorrow can either be viewed as a lack of progress or as an opportunity to help new people solve new problems. Even if another starfish is washed up, throwing it back makes a difference to that starfish. 3, control your attitude. While the circumstances don't change, you can change the way you respond to them. The first of 2 men laying bricks grunts a response to a passerby's question that he's slaving away laying bricks. The second responds enthusiastically that he's building a magnificent cathedral. It's the same job, just a different attitude. You can either feel like you're slaving away or that you're doing something important.